to On One Radio, the talk show podcast station, bringing you the current events and issues. All information and resources are based on the opinions of the host unless otherwise noted. This podcast may contain some quotations, images, and/or excerpts from copyrighted material. These uses fall well within the copyright doctrine of fair use. This is the News Report, and I am your host, Tony. Welcome everybody. This is your news report. We've got a lot going on, and it's really important for us to stay aware and in the know of what's going on. And one of the things that has been going on, has happened, and currently still going on, is a process dealing with an officer, a former officer, Amber Guyger. She was a Dallas cop, and I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this story or not, but this female cop, she went into the home and she killed the man that in his home. Again, her name was Amber Guyger, the former Dallas police officer sentenced to 10 years in prison last year for the 2018 shooting death of her upstairs neighbor, has filed an appeal to get her conviction overturned. Now, that's according to reports. Now, Guyger's legal team hopes to have the murder conviction reduced to a felony count and then get a new punishment hearing. Now, the former officer's defense lawyers claim Guyger was convicted on insufficient evidence and that a rational jury would have concluded her actions were justified. And this is what the report is stating. Now, according to authorities, Guyger entered the Dallas apartment of neighbor botham-jean, 26, and fatally shot him in September of 2018. Guyger claims she entered the apartment by mistake, thinking it was her own residence, and fired at Jean because she thought he had broken into the apartment. Guyger was fired by the Dallas Police Department after the shooting, the Dallas Morning News reported. Now, Mike Mola, an appellate attorney representing Guyger, claimed the charge of murder was unjustified because Guyger believed she was acting in self-defense. It goes on to say the former officer should have faced a charge of negligent homicide if charged at all. In Texas, negligent homicide carries a penalty of 180 days to 2 years in prison if convicted, with probation possible. In the appeal, Guyger's lawyers wrote the evidence was legally insufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Guyger committed murder because, 1, through mistake, Guyger formed a reasonable belief about a matter of fact that she entered her apartment and there was an intruder inside, and 2, her mistaken belief negated the culpability of murder because although she intentionally and knowingly caused his death, she had the right to act in deadly force in self-defense since her belief that deadly force was necessary and was reasonable under the circumstances. So, based on her belief that she was in her own apartment, they're really feeling like that she should get off on this, basically. Now, in court last October, a jury rejected the contention that Guyger's use of deadly force was reasonable as required as required under Texas law to have an action be considered self-defense. Guyger's defense team had argued that Guyger was mistaken about which apartment she entered because the layout of her floor and that of Jean's floor were identical and he lived in the apartment directly above her. She had also finished a long shift at work, making fatigue a possible factor in her mistake, defense lawyers had claimed during the trial. So, her filing for an appeal and everything, it's almost like this has to be some common sense used here. It has to be. because this whole situation it's really unjust that it even had to happen to begin with. Now, of the 71 tenants interviewed, 44% said they had entered the wrong apartment on the wrong floor, and 23% said had gone to the wrong floor and tried to use their key to enter the wrong apartment. Now, that's what the court documents stated. Prosecutors argued that Jean had been eating a bowl of ice cream inside his apartment when Guyger entered, negating her claim that he appeared to pose a threat to her. After Guyger was sentenced last year, his brother, botham-jean, said he forgave her for the shooting, hoped she would devote her life to Christ, then asked the judge if he could give Guyger a hug. The judge agreed, and John's brother and Guyger embraced in the courtroom. So, where we are right now with this is she's filed an appeal. They're trying to say that she was right for killing this man in his own apartment. And that should let every citizen of America know where you stand as far as being a lawful citizen. So imagine if you have immigration status or anything else, that just makes it that much more terrifying. And no one deserves to live terrified that the people who are supposed to be protecting and serving are even capable of making mistakes like that. But it happened. Now it's, like I say, it's still going. So it once again becomes a current event and issue amongst all the other issues we have going on right now. And this was a precursor to what was already in motion to start happening. So just everyone be aware and, just really pay attention to your surroundings. You really have to. Now, moving on to the next one. Colorado DA to investigate after black girls ordered to ground in mistaken stolen car stop. A Colorado district attorney said Friday she would investigate the actions of Aurora police who drew their guns and ordered black girls and women to get on the ground face first after mistaking the minivan they were in for a stolen vehicle. Now, it goes on to say, if our investigation determines that the officers involved committed a crime, I will not hesitate to file charges and prosecute them. District Attorney George Bachler, who has jurisdiction over Aurora, said in a statement, I intend to investigate this matter thoroughly and with appropriate haste. The officers have not been publicly identified. The girls, ages 6 to 17, were Brittany Gillum, 29, mother to one of them, aunt to others, as well as Gillum's sister when police stopped them in a parking lot Sunday, based on the belief that the minivan they were in was stolen, according to the family, police, and Gillman's lawyer. Now, I want to stop right there for a second, and I want to go back to where it made the statements about the officers have not been publicly identified, but the victims are. I mean, that's just a little nugget to keep right there, just a little something, to have you thinking. Now, the girls were headed to get their nails done when they were ordered face down on the ground by officers with guns drawn, Gillum said. A bystander, Jennifer Wirtz, used a cell phone to capture video of the stop. Kudos to you, Jennifer. Definitely kudos to you, because nowadays you have to have some sort of protection, and cell phone video is one of the best options right now. It really is. Now, one of the girls cries, I want my mother. Another says, can I have my sister next to me? Two of the children and Gillum were restrained even after the group was allowed to get off the ground, said David Lane, a civil rights attorney representing the family. Gilman was put in a police vehicle. Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson said in a statement Friday that she shares the concern over what transpired, which is why I immediately ordered an internal affairs investigation. The department said in an earlier statement to NBC News that officers believe The minivan was stolen because it shared the plate number of a stolen motorcycle. When the officers realized the stolen motorcycle had plates from a different state, they unhandcuffed everyone involved, made efforts to explain what happened, and apologized. Public Information Officer Faith Goodrich said in a statement. Okay, now see, that brings me to another little deal. Okay, so they were after a stolen motorcycle that has a different state on it. So how do you confuse a minivan for a motorcycle? And also, how do you confuse two different states? I mean, it seems to be that these officers need to be thoroughly trained, thoroughly retrained, and not be retrained by those who were training before. That's part of the issue right there. So I'm just, getting it out there for you guys and letting y'all know what it is and what I think about it, because it's too many mistakes going on. If an average everyday person who's not a servant of the city make a mistake, they're going to get ran through the ringer for making a mistake. Yet there are so many other situations to where it's automatic that the officer is believed, that their fear or that their terror or what they even believe in is more important than another person and what trauma they go through, what they experience, their fear, their terror. And it's only happening more, and something really needs to be done about it, but I want to make sure that all my listeners know what's going on, because we have to stay up on what's happening so we know what's going on in our neighborhoods and within our communities as well as our country, so that we can try and be better prepared to handle what takes place or what happens. But there is definitely a way that these police officers could handle things better and do things better so they won't be making so many mistakes. Because if it's all mistake-ridden, the world is in trouble, and we cannot have that. So something does need to be done about it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This news report was going to be a bit of a short one, but I wanted to make sure to get it out there so you guys were aware of what's going on. I want you to stay in the know so you're not left behind, and then you're looking later and people are like, where you been, under a rock? And you're like, no. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, show love and support, give credit where it's due, and be good, as well as be good to one another. Until next time. You have been listening to On One Radio, the talk show podcast station, bringing you the current events and issues. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my news report. I wish